Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of That Time Where Kevin's Voice Becomes So Melodious He Can't Stand It. It's Sad Times. My name is Kevin. I'm your host. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who have never listened to Sad Times, a very quick primer. Sad Times is a show in which each week we have a guest on who talks about times they were sad, upset, angry, struggles they've had in their life, things that still give them hang-ups in day-to-day life. The hope here is not to solve these problems, nor is it to diagnose it, nor is it to judge it. It's to allow that person to tell their story so that you at home can hear those stories and perhaps hear something that you relate to, and then maybe feel more keen to share some of your own troubles with those around you. The hope being that we could be a bit more empathetic. So that's Sad Times, and Sad Times is now a podcast that has a website. It's www.sadtimespodcast.com. If I said that too fast, just look in the show notes because there's a link there too. Thank you to our intern / data guy, Wade. Wade built that website for us very quickly. Thank you, Wade. You're still not going to get paid. All right. Before we get going with this week's guest, we only do have one sponsor this week, unfortunately. This week, the sponsor is the specious argument that American football has more action than baseball. According to two separate Wall Street Journal studies, the average time of action in a football game is 11 minutes, and the average time of action in a baseball game is 18 minutes. That's right. You can listen to the full length of In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida by Iron Butterfly and still see a minute of baseball, whereas the football game would end sometime in the middle of that far too long drum solo. That might be my favorite sponsor so far because it's right. All right, great. All right, let's get to our guest, a good and talented young man by the name of Joel. Joel, how you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I love citing Wall Street Journal studies of action in American sports games. That really is one of my favorite pastimes, other than the American pastime.
I didn't know you had Wall Street Journal as a sponsor.
Oh, we don't. We don't. Although they're welcome to sponsor us if they'd like to. That would be fine.
I'll let them know.
Okay. Do you talk to them a lot?
Daily.
Daily?
Yeah.
All right. Wait, no, the Daily is New York Times podcast.
Oh. Well, just as good.
Just that I would also be fine if the Daily were to sponsor us. That would be just fine. Where are you talking to us from, Joel?
I'm in Evanston, just outside of Chicago. We say we're from Chicago. We're about a block and a half north of Howard, which is the north border of Chicago.
I guess I forgot that you were that close to the border.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does the wind ever hit heavy on the borderline up there?
No, it stops right at Howard, right at the border.
It's good. It's good.
The Windy City doesn't come up to Evanston.
There's at least one person who I know will probably listen to this who will get that wind hits heavy on the borderline reference, and he's probably laughing right now. I hope. He's a mutual friend of ours, Joel.
Oh, yeah.
But you lived in Chicago for a long time. How long did you live in Chicago?
Well, I moved to Chicago right before 9/11 to go to school. I moved from small town. I was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which might as well be a small town, to Chicago, and then 9/11. And I've been here ever since.
Did you go to college in Sioux Falls? Like undergrad?
I went to college in Sioux Falls for 2 years. I was a music major for a year. And
really?
I decided I didn't like other musicians. So I switched to be a computer science major for about a semester. And that was awful.
Uh-huh.
And I switched to be an art major, which I loved. But I really wanted to do film and animation. And they didn't have any film classes there. So I looked around and applied to school. I applied to a school in Canada because I was dating. I had a Canadian girlfriend.
Oh, and you had a Canadian girlfriend?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I didn't.
So does Wade.
Oh, fantastic.
He swears.
We'll talk about it later. That's your intern.
Our data guy.
I went to the School of the Arts of Chicago for undergrad. I finished my undergrad there.
Okay, and it was to specifically do film and animation?
Yeah.
Okay, so first off, that's pretty badass. What music? When you studied music, what instrument did you play?
I was on scholarship for country bass clarinet.
How have you might have told me this at some point when we had 17 to 28 beers. I don't know.
Yeah.
One thing about Joel is one of the greatest dancers you will ever see in your life. We used to go to an old man country band, every week, Joel.
Yeah.
And Joel, what'd they call you? Rubber legs?
Or rubber band.
Oh, rubber band man.
Rubber legs or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the story is the first time they saw me, they told our mutual friend, "What is this guy doing here? He needs to go back to Boys Town." And our friend said, "Oh no, it's okay. He has a girlfriend." And they were like, "Oh, cool. He's rubber legs."
That's odd.
Yeah, but it's par for this course for that bar, I think.
Yeah, a dive bar in the city of Chicago. Unfortunately, some people have strange and antiquated views. But that was in, 2007 when we started going there.
That sounds about right.
And we went every weekend for quite a long time, at least a year.
Sometimes
I think
twice.
I don't believe I missed a week, maybe one weekend. Yes, and sometimes twice. So that might have been when you told me that you played that instrument that I've now just heard of, that you told me. So, and then you were on scholarship, and then now you grew up in Iowa, right?
Northwest Iowa, yeah, on a farm.
Ooh, beautiful. It's beautiful there.
Are you being facetious?
I am.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Actually, where I grew up, there's lots of hills. It's very nice. It's the hilliest part of Iowa, I think.
The actual hills?
Hill. Oh, yeah.
Wow. That's,
Nice.
I didn't know Iowa had hills. Now, I've only really I've been to Des Moines,
Right.
Davenport. Davenport's in Iowa, right? I love the Quad
it's my
Cities.
favorite city name.
Davenport? Why?
Yeah. Because you sit on it. I don't know. It's hilarious.
Oh, yes. My grandpa used to always call the couch a Davenport.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's weird. Okay. And then he would take a nap on it and snore. And then we'd be like, Grandpa, you were snoring. And he would say, no, I wasn't. And that was the end of that conversation.
Yeah. And I've had that one too.
Yeah. Have you?
Yeah.
So you came to the big city. Now, had you been to Chicago before you come to school here?
No, I did a tour of the school before I came, but that was it. I'd never been. Maybe I'd gone through the airport, O'Hare, but that was it. What
were your first impressions?
Big and scary. I grew up on a farm in Iowa. My whole circle was like 12 people. My graduating class is 114 people.
Oh, mine was like 116.
Tiny.
Yeah, that's very similar. What was your town's population?
I think somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000. You know what our high school mascot was, though? Have I told you that?
You probably have, but I forget. What is it?
Is the midgets. And the girls' team is the midgets.
Are you serious? Is that still the case?
They voted to maybe change it a few years ago, but the town voted against changing it. So it's still the midgets and the midgets. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Wow. Iowa, the first in the nation caucus. Actually, let me ask you this. Growing up in Iowa, did you meet any presidential candidates?
All of them.
All of them?
No. No, I didn't. I didn't even know that was going on. We're not.
Your family wasn't really...
Like everyone in the States is like, why is this in Iowa? And then people who are in Iowa are like, it's in Iowa?
Well, I do know that Iowa has 99 counties. I know that because of the Iowa caucus. Okay, so Sioux Falls, South Dakota, you come to Chicago. What neighborhood did you live in when you first moved here?
Well, I lived downtown. I lived in the dorms.
Oh, okay.
For a year. And then I lived in the Gold Coast for a year. So I had a very skewed view of Chicago for a long time. And then eventually I moved farther and farther and farther north, and now I'm the farthest north that I've lived.
Yes.
I lived downtown for a year, and then Gold Coast, which is just north of downtown, for a year. Very rich neighborhood. There's a Barnes & Noble like in the basement. And
yeah, right there near Clark and Division there?
Yeah, right there. There's a Jewel there.
Oh, I've been to that Jewel.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks for tuning in to Chicago Landmarks that nobody cares about.
Both of your listeners have left now.
I know. Yeah. All denotes 3 or more. Thank you for correcting yourself because we know it's just 2. And one of them is currently producing the show. Don't look at me that way, Brent. Okay. All right. So lived in Chicago now. In the Chicago area, you've lived there about almost coming up on 22 years then.
Yeah. More like, yeah. Well, let's see. I moved in August of 2001. So yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Crazy.
Right. So I'm probably just about 22 years now. That's more than half of my life.
Yeah. How does that make you feel?
Not that strongly in any way.
Okay, that's a good honest answer.
Yeah. It's a little scary.
About 6 years ago, a little over 6 years ago, I did a one-man show. I've talked about it a little bit on the podcast. And there was a bit in the one-man show where there's a couple times where I said something like, raise your hand if, and then I said like a crazy type hypochondria thing. In most shows, not many people would raise their hand, but when you came to see the show, I don't remember which part it was, but I said something, and then your hand went up a little bit, stopped, and then you just were like, I'm going for it. You put your hand up. And I was like, yeah, that guy, even though I knew your name. And I know that you and I, over the years, have talked about our shared dealings with hypochondria. Did you have that much as a kid? Like, were you a hypochondriac as a kid?
Not that I remember. I don't know when I started feeling worried about health. I have no idea. I don't know what triggered it.
Well, I mean, once you got to the big city, were you dating a lot of people who were not from Canada?
Well, I was still dating a girl from Canada until I met other people.
Oh, okay.
I mean, no, I struggled in school is different, right? You're around people. I had one person in school, I guess. And then after school, after graduation, this was probably in 2004 or 5, somewhere in there. And I started doing internet dating, which at the time wasn't like super weird because it had been around a little bit, but it was, I feel like today it's sort of accepted, right? Would you say? Oh,
I'd say that, yeah, nowadays it is very much like, well, it's not like, oh, you go to a bar to meet someone, although you obviously can do that. It's you go on, you get an app and do it that way.
So at the time it wasn't like that. So I felt weird doing online dating because it just felt like it was a little creepy, but I dated a girl from Canada, so it wasn't super weird. Do
they have the internet in Canada?
Just one internet.
Just the one? Okay, got it. Okay.
So I think, I had some luck with the internet dating. And I wasn't like promiscuous, but I was a boy in my 20s. So there were things that happened.
Did you in that, you're dating people, you're being intimate with them, did you have like fears of STDs?
Initially I did not. And then I had a thing that happened, which was that there was some pain down there. I don't know if you know this, Kevin, but boys have these sort of round balls that dangle down from your groin.
We're gonna have Wade check on that. Wade,
that's a good idea.
Yeah,
maybe a little Google search. But they were sort of painful and a little bit swollen and kind of red at some point. And I wanted to kind of ignore it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Sure.
And so at some point I went to Planned Parenthood to get tested. And of course, they check you out there. And so I went in there and I said, what's going on? I said, I've got some pain down there and they're kind of red and a little bit swollen feeling. And also my genitals have shrunk down because normally it's much bigger, but right now it just happens to be smaller. As
they're examining?
Yes. I made sure they knew that.
Oh, that was very good of you.
Two like young, attractive nurses that are examining me and talking about all of the times that things that happen sexually, because that's what they ask you about. And they didn't know what was going on, but they did, they took my blood and they said, well, we'll find out in a few days. And I was able to get a dermatologist appointment the next day because I was freaking out. And I felt like there were some bumps down there and I didn't know what they were. And
Wait,
I thought, well, that
hold
has
on.
to be
Bumps on your scrotum?
on the little round things that are down there.
On the skin or on the actual?
On the skin, yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I assumed that it was probably underneath and it was cancer, is what I assumed. And so I got a dermatologist appointment the next day somehow. I don't know if somebody canceled or whatever, and I went to the dermatologist, and it was kind of the same thing where it's like all these attractive residents examining me. And my main dermatologist guy, who I liked at the time, he was asking questions like, well, did you change your soap? Did you change your shampoo? And the nice, attractive techs are like asking me what sorts of holes I'm putting my genitals in and who's putting genitals in my holes and all of that. And they're like, I don't know what's going on. It looks upset down there, but wait for your blood work.
Okay.
And so that night I was going to a film screening at the Music Box. So it was it was an animation. And the director was going to be there. And I went with some mutual friends of ours.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there and it's hurting. I feel it down there. I feel the tumor growing and I'm in pain and I can't stop thinking about it. And so at some point I told my friends, I got to go. And the director is like on the stage doing his talk. And I left the theater and I went to the emergency room and the hospital. I won't say the name of the hospital just because they might sponsor you at some point. But
here's hoping.
Let's just say our friend described this hospital as a hospital that you would not go to unless you were literally shot in the parking lot of that hospital. That's the only reason you would go there.
I think I've been in that hospital to, that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. So I went in there in the emergency room and it was a nightmare. There's and it's, I don't know, 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people screaming and people with knives sticking out of their torso.
Are you serious?
Doctors running around.
Like people had been stabbed were there?
That's what it seemed like. We'll go with yes.
Okay.
And I'm freaking out because I'm feeling pain and I don't know what's going on.
Well, can I ask you something? Going back to when you were at the premiere. So you the day before you'd gone to Planned Parenthood, the next day you got the dermatologist appointment. That night was the premiere. So tell me, explain to me the process of your thoughts, not what you were thinking, right? You were probably worried, oh, this is cancer, oh, I'm going to die. Like, did your thoughts accelerate with each visit to the doctor? And then when you're sitting there with your friends trying to support other artists, did it just overtake your thinking so much so that you just had to leave?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like if nobody can give you an answer, that's the worst. So I have I don't even want to go to the doctor anymore because every time I go, they have nothing to tell me. It's just, they're like, well, nothing is wrong. You're fine. Even though I feel like there's pain, there's discomfort, it's red, there were bumps, it's cancer. And they say, we don't know what to tell you. Wait for your blood work. And so I went to the ER after, I was sitting there just freaking out. And the ER place, they did the same, they juggled around down there and looked at it and said, oh yeah. A little upset. They did an ultrasound, which I didn't know that they could see babies when they were that small. I mean, that's what the ultrasound is for, right? Just that. I'm sitting in the ultrasound room, and the tech is, of course, yet again, this nice-looking young woman, and she's it's a good thing that you don't have video version of this because I'm just gesturing.
Yeah, well, look, I have to see it.
And rubbing the ultrasound thing, and I'm trying to see the screen, and she's going, and looking around what? What is it? And she said, well, I can't tell you. The doctor has to. Wait a minute. Did she actually say basically that? I'm having a reaction, you asked a question, and she said, I can't tell you? Yeah.
Tell me what your brain did at that moment.
I mean, I assumed the worst, of course. What else are you going to assume? Oh, it's fine. When somebody's examining your body and says, oh, we need to wait for the doctor, you don't go, oh, it's okay. There's nothing wrong.
I would freak out.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I'm shaking and sweating and I'm practically in tears. And she's like rubbing this thing all around. It was taking forever. It felt like it was a half an hour, like ultrasound examination.
Plus you were in pain down there, right?
Yeah. And it's not helping that it's gooey because she's got the like gel from the and she's like rubber gloves or moving around and shifting things around. And I'm like, what are those black dots on the screen? And she's like, you need to wait for the doctor.
So you saw black dots on the screen, like around on your testicles?
Yeah, well, I don't know what I'm looking at.
Okay, that's fair.
Screen with like weird stuff, and like I'm like that's an alien baby or a tumor. I don't know what's happening.
Okay, so what happened when
they finished that?
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. They send me back to the waiting or the ER room, the closet or whatever, and so I'm waiting, and finally the doctor comes in and he looks at it. He's like, "Well, yeah, it looks like you might have," and I'm like, "What? What?" He's like, an air pocket in one of your testicles, and that might be causing the pain. And I was like, what?
An air pocket?
He's like, yeah, there might be a little bit of air in one of your testicles that might be upsetting you. And I was like, what do you do about that? Is there surgery? Could it be cancer air? And he says, well,
cancer air.
My recommendation is that you wait for your test results for your STD test results. And if you're still having pain tomorrow, then maybe go to a doctor again.
Okay.
But we can't, the air pocket isn't big enough that we need to really worry about it. So I think you should just go home. And I'm like, what? It's not helpful.
So
that might be bad, but you're telling me just to go home?
This is the third visit in like 36 hours.
Yeah.
And each one.
By this point, it's like, I don't know, 11 at night or midnight.
Right. And each one has referred back to the tests that happened the first time. The first visit. Okay.
Yeah. Went home.
Okay.
And the next day I went to this like tiny little health clinic, which is like, I don't know, you're only supposed to go there if you don't have insurance, which I didn't. And I went in there and it's like this, like old, no nonsense Polish woman who's the doctor.
Uh-huh.
And I go in there the next day because it still feels weird and there's still bumps. And I told her the whole story. I'm like, I got an STD test and I've got pain and it's like swelling a little bit and there's these bumps. And I went to the doctor by the ER last night and she's looking around down there, no nonsense. And she says, have you been looking at the internet? And I'm like, she means, have I been looking at porn?
So you thought she was asking if you were watching porn? Yeah. Okay.
And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm a 20 whatever 6-year-old boy, like I guess. And she's like, you need to stop doing that. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess. I mean, I didn't know it was that big of a deal. I thought that was normal. And she says, these WebMD websites, they'll tell you the worst. I didn't. Oh, WebMD. Yeah, the internet. That's what I've been doing. And she's like, there's nothing wrong with you.
Not even an air pocket?
He's like, wait.
Does she know about air cancer?
Wait for your STD test results, but there's nothing wrong with you.
Okay, so, I have to stop and say, for medical professionals out there, my sister is one, though she is not a doctor. The invent or the coming of WebMD must have made their lives horrible.
Yeah, I talk to doctors about that a lot. I
really?
asked them, said, do you hate it when people come in with like ideas about what that, and it's a mixed response. Some doctors will say, oh, it's the worst. And some doctors will say, actually, if people have a little bit of information and they have an idea about what to look for, it's not a bad thing. So I guess it depends on the doctor.
I have to wonder, though, how many people come in and say, I read on WebMD that I have X, right. And the doctor's like, well, I'm a doctor and I examined you and you don't have that. And the people come back, no, WebMD said I have this. I think at that point, and, I'm no doctor, and neither is my sister, but at that point, I would think, can you just let me be the doctor for a second, please?
Yeah. So anyway, my test results came back, and I was fine.
All right. So
there's nothing wrong.
You
I have another ER story that I forgot to tell you.
Oh, let's hear it.
So, in the middle of this would have been just, I think, January 2021. So middle of the pandemic, the worst part of the pandemic, right after the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's like, it's the worst numbers I think that ever they had. I was feeling some extreme abdominal pain.
Oh.
And we were sitting there, the whole day I was feeling some discomfort, and I'm looking on the internet at WebMD.
Not at porn.
Right, not at porn.
Okay.
And I'm assuming it's cancer because all of the answers are cancer, right? You follow the flow chart. Is this wrong? Is this wrong?
Right. All arrows just lead to one box that says cancer.
Yeah. So I'm feeling more, and I'm like freaking out. And my wife Katie is like, okay. She knows that I freak out about stuff all the time. And the day is progressing, and I'm feeling more and more discomfort in my abdomen, and I'm like prodding, poking in and releasing really quickly to see, is it
appendicitis?
I knew it was appendicitis.
Yeah.
And the more time passed, the more I just thought this is for sure 100% cancer, or maybe appendicitis. And so we're sitting there at 10 o'clock at night, and I'm like freaking out. I can't stop like poking at my belly. And finally, Katie's like, why don't you go to the ER? If you're in that much pain.
Was it a pretty significant amount of pain?
It seemed like it, yes.
Okay.
On a scale of 1 to 10, it felt like, a 10.
That's pretty significant pain.
Yeah. I mean, or a 6, maybe.
Or a 6.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. Maybe an average of the two numbers, which is 8.
Yeah, probably that.
Check on that, Wade. Okay.
And so I'm like, I don't want to go to the ER. It's like the middle of a pandemic. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to the ER. Okay, I'll go to the ER. And so I got up and I drove, and Katie's like, fine. She's like, assuming like either something is wrong and we'll deal with it, or nothing is wrong. And so I go to the ER. I drive myself to the ER at the hospital Anderson, which is, I don't know, it's not like a huge hospital, but it's one step above getting shot in the parking lot, and you go there.
Right.
I go there at the ER, and it's a nightmare again. But only this time, instead of everybody with knives in their torso, it's everybody's coughing because everyone in there has COVID.
Yeah.
And the whole hallway is full of beds with people who are like presumably dying of COVID. And we hadn't got it yet. And I still haven't had it as far as I know, knock on wood. But I was like, this is awful. I do not want to be here. And the nurses they were great. They were sympathetic. They were like, we're sorry that you're having this pain. And they did an examination, and they're like, oh yeah, it seems like that there could be something wrong there. And I'm like, is it cancer? And they're like, well, we need to look. So they did some blood work, and they took me back to do MRI. And they shot me full of the like blue fluid or whatever, I don't know, whatever, to radioactive sugar to see what's happening. And then did the whole like MRI thing, which I think is that's the best impression I've ever done.
That's actually, I hope that we'll have Brent cut that in post, and then we're going to copyright that shit, and you're going to get no money for it.
Oh. So I did that, and I sat in put me in a closet because they're out of room. They literally put me in a storage closet to like keep me away from the people who had COVID. And I can hear screaming and people like coughing, and it is awful. And the doctor finally came, and this was probably at midnight at this point in January, maybe of 2021. And he like looked at my blood work, and he looked at the MRI images, and he's like, well, I mean, I don't see that your appendix is bursts or anything. Do you think that maybe you're constipated? And I was like, no, I'm pooped. Oh, shit.
Oh, no.
And I thought about it, and I was like, oh my God, am I in the ER during a pandemic because I'm constipated? And so, like, he said, well, you can go home. We don't see anything wrong. You should call your doctor tomorrow, though, and have her, like, look at your blood work again. And so I went home, and then I pooped the next day.
And then everything was fine?
Yeah, so I don't know if that's normal.
Okay, hold on. Couple things.
Yeah.
I want to give a quick shout out, honest shout out to healthcare workers in the pandemic, because my God.
I felt so bad for them. They were like clearly done. It was awful. I felt really bad being there, and especially stupid the next day where I'm like, oh, did I really go to the ER? Because
were you having that thought as you were pooping?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably. The other thing I want to say is, If anybody tells you that, hey, every American can get health care because they can go to the ER, I would look a bit sideways at them and question their motives for saying that. Thank you.
I was lucky that I did have insurance because the MRI is like,
oh yeah,
I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000 or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, just moderately priced, like everything else in healthcare.
Yeah. So my one poop probably cost like $500.
My one poop probably cost $500.
Yeah. Yeah. So
okay.
I felt really dumb.
I'm really glad that that's the first time I've heard that story because that is funny. But I look in truth though, I don't having been somebody who's worried that I've had everything known to man. I don't mean to mock like the worry that you felt because I'm sure that when you're feeling that worry it is overwhelming.
Right.
But anything with poop is kind of funny.
Well, we have a soon to be 6-year-old and everything with poop is funny.
Oh, is that his does he got a stand up, like 5 minutes to stand up and it's all about poop?
We're working on it. Yeah.
Good.
Bought him a leather bound notebook. He can keep notes in. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do want to say this. Probably about 20 years ago now, I wrote a poem. Oh, buddy. A poem. And it was called Hypochondriac. And all the poem was I listed all the shit that I thought I had. It was a very long poem. And the last 2 lines were, I was right about the kidney stones. I'll be right again.
Yeah.
Fucking hard.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, the worry isn't, I feel stupid because I assume the worst all the time. But the worry part of it, I don't feel that mad about because there's nothing you can do about it. You can't. We talked with our kid all the time. You can't control the way that you feel, and that sinks in a lot more as an adult talking to a kid about that sort of thing. Because I realized, and you really can't. I'm in my 40s, and I can't control the way that I feel. Me going to the ER, I can control that.
True. But in the moment, if you're all day and you really think you have an appendicitis or you're looking at the cancer flow chart, you know, the brain can get away from you.
Yeah. One of my posters is a cancer flow chart.
Yeah, I see that right behind you there. Although that is a fucking cool, fantastic planet poster behind you.
It's a Fantastic Planet shirt on, actually.
Oh.
And I bought this shirt. And that I'll show you in the camera, and then no one listening will think it's interesting. But I bought the shirt, and then I was wearing it out to the grocery store once, and I realized,
oh, so that is an alien who's doesn't have all her clothes on.
Well, she does. It's just that her memories there's holes in her shirt specifically for her.
Yes, right.
Pectoral muscles.
Memories and pectoral muscles. Okay.
I'm not a doctor. I don't know if that's clear, so don't judge me for saying the wrong.
I don't know. You're a doctor of animation, aren't you?
No, I'm a master.
You do have a master's. That's right.
I do have a master's.
How long have you been a teacher?
I started in 2009.
Awesome.
Yeah, I started because I went to school for animation and then graduated, and like anybody in the arts, I struggled finding work. But I ended up doing motion graphic design, so commercial animation, basically.
Gotcha.
And I was doing that as a freelancer, so I wasn't working anywhere full time, but I was a permanent, I was a full-time freelancer. That was what I was doing. I was making enough money.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, it's stressful because you don't know when there's going to be a lull, or you just want to turn something down because the client is total shit. So I got an offer, or I found out about a teaching job at DePaul University, somebody to teach 3D. And I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. It'd be a night class I could do. And I applied and I got it. And I think I started in fall 2009.
Okay.
Go ahead. So one class, one night a week. For a year. And then I started taking on more classes because I kind of liked it. And then eventually, right after that, I also got a job teaching at the School of the Arts of Chicago as the SE.
What did you like about
just
it?
refer to as the Art Institute, although it is not AI. To be clear, it is not.
No, it's not AI. AI is going to kill all of us.
No, it's not the AI Art Institute. This is this. I went to and taught at the school of the Art Institute of Chicago, not AI, which is, I think it's a for-profit school, Art Institute, or the Art Institutes. There's some all over.
Wait, so the School of the Art Institute, is that connected to the Art Institute of Chicago?
Yeah, so it's the school came first, and then the museum and the school they're the same entity, but the museum came after the school.
Oh, I didn't know that. I guess I always assumed that the museum came first. What did you like about
that, Kevin?
I know. Okay. Well, what do I know? I do know the average amount of action in a baseball and football game, according to the Wall Street Journal.
Which is more interesting.
So, yes, it is. What do you like about teaching?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm as an artist who is not going to make work that is going to give me enough money to live. The reason I started teaching is because I wanted to make work. I wanted to have time for work, my work, and not have to freelance so much. And so one thing that I like is that it allows me to have enough time that I can work on my stuff, but also make money. But more and more, I like being in the community. In school, you're in the community. You went to theater school, right? You did theater in school?
Yes,
right?
I did. Mm-hmm.
But you're in the community all the time. You're with people who are excited about the same stuff.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah.
And that's great. You're with faculty that are exciting and show you new ideas, and with people who love acting and theater, and I miss that part of school. So teaching also that allows me to be in the community again, and I do on the the faculty side of it. So, but I still have students surprise us all the time. They're excited about work. You talk about film, you show them something, and they're like, "Oh my God, that film was amazing," and that feels nice. You're talking with your fellow faculty about work and seeing new stuff, and that's great. That's fantastic.
And so, and that's great. And you said that you went to teach so that you could work more. And you have been, by your own, I mean, you have done a lot of animating in the last 15 years.
Yeah. When I started, right before I started teaching in 2008, I had been working on an animated film, and you recorded it. It was in 2008, I think. So Kevin is a voice that we had. Well, Chris Markham, who has been a guest, I think.
Oh, yes.
And some other people were voices, and we recorded all of the dialogue for this film that I was working on, and it was a long film. It ended up being 46 minutes, I think, which is a terrible length for a film. But I was working on it for 5 years, and I was tired of not having anything finished. So at some point, I decided that I wanted to teach full time, which meant that I needed a master's degree. So I was teaching at DePaul and at SAIC. And DePaul, if you go to school, if you're teaching there, which I was as an adjunct, then you get basically a third off of your tuition. So I decided to go there for grad school, which was fun and weird because I was teaching students in one class and then a classmate of theirs in another. So that was interesting.
Oh, that is interesting.
But when I started grad school, one of my goals was, I want to fucking finish work. I need to get some films done because I'm tired. I liked working on the film that I was working on, but I was tired of just only doing the one thing.
Can I ask you what's probably an annoying question? I don't mean it to be. I have, of course, seen that film. I went to, I don't know if it was the premiere, one of the screenings of it. And just for the record, the best line, and I'm going to mess it up, is this fresh bread? Or I don't remember the full line. Yeah. Anyway, it was a very detailed film. And as somebody who obviously I've doodled and all that shit, but tell me about the painstaking process. This is the annoying question of animating something like that for 5 years?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's different techniques or mediums. I don't know. I kind of drift between. So I'm doing that film was everything, all of the characters and all of the stuff in the environment and the background. It was all drawn by hand on paper with pencil, and then scanned and then painted digitally. And then I would cut all of the pieces out and animate everything in the computer. So it's digital cutout is specifically the style. And so I don't know, like all of it is slow. Like the drawing stuff is sort of slow, but I'm also like I'm not a great drafts person. So I get a little bit lazy about some things. So some of the stuff I did kind of quickly, and then animated kind of quickly.
Okay.
But I like that some of the stuff that took the longest was the technical side of it. Getting things working in the software, trying to solve technical problems. But those are things that I sort of like, so I don't mind spending.
You like that? I was just thinking how terrible that sounds.
I know. It's like problem solving. It's a puzzle, right? I like that. Like finding what the answer is. Some people hate it. I'm one of those weirdos that sort of like, I liked computer programming. I didn't want to be a computer science major, but I like programming. I actually like it. It's problem solving. It's a mystery. It's a logic puzzle. I like those things.
Throwback to earlier in the episode. Do you have one of those dulcimer bass clarinets anywhere around, or whatever the hell it's called?
Bass clarinet? No, it was the school's. It was a $10,000 instrument.
Holy shit!
Yeah. So no, I was just borrowing it from the school.
So
I do a closet full of other random instruments.
I know you've made. Oh, what's that?
Oh, it's a recorder.
Oh God!
Maybe I could record a
No,
theme song.
don't put that down. Put it down now. Thank you. So the film that I did the voice, I had a small part, did the voice. Markham was the lead.
Yeah.
Another friend of ours was in it, and that went to a festival. Now, how many films have you had? I just wanted you to say this because this impresses the hell out of me. How many films have you had that have gone to festivals?
Well, I think I counted the other day. I think it was like 12 or something like that. I forget.
Yeah, that's insane. But when we were talking, I said something to the effect of, "Holy shit, Joel, 12," and you downplayed that. Why did you downplay it?
Well, because like my goal in grad school is to get as much done as possible, like finish films, and so I did. I finished a ton of. I think I finished maybe 4 or 5 in grad school, which is, and they're not like super long films.
Mm-hmm.
The longest one I think is 16 minutes, but they're like, my goal was to finish them. My goal wasn't to make the best film I possibly could, which I regret. I'm glad they're done. I'm glad that I made them, and there are things in all of them that I like, and all of them have screened in lots of festivals. But there are major flaws in every single one of them that I just feel really shitty about.
What do you mean? Like, what are the major flaws? Like, what are the major flaws?
Well, one of the things that I am not great at is writing, and it's as an independent filmmaker, especially who is working in the medium of animation, you're stuck doing kind of like all the things unless you have money. So most of these films, I did almost all of the stuff, with the exception of voices, or sometimes I'd have help with music, and I usually had help with sound. But otherwise, the character designs, the stories, the backgrounds, all of this stuff, all the animation, it's basically all me. And the thing that I think that I'm the least good at is the stuff that you do first, which is writing and making sure that the story is good and that the themes are interesting and powerful. And a lot of times I get impatient and just want to start animating or doing the fun stuff. And
so does that like cut loose the draft, for lack of a better term, the draft process?
Yeah. So Sometimes there's a script and sometimes it's not. If there's not really talking, there's no script necessarily. It's just like an outline, a description of all the, the main story beats or the things that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll do storyboards, which is you just draw really shitty thumbnail drawings of all of the things that happen. And you sort of look at them all together and see, is it working? Is it a film? Is it working? Does it make sense? Are there things missing? And I sort of do a really rough pass on that, when in reality, I should spend a lot more time making sure that the story is right and that the themes are unique and consistent and that the payoff at the end ties it all together. And sometimes it does for my films, and sometimes it's like, I don't know if that made sense, or this section is way too long, and this other section, no one understands what's happening.
People say that to you, or is that your own internal thought of it?
Well, some of both. But I mean, I know that, like, so Where It Floods, the film that you did the voice for, it took me 8 years in total to do. And I worked on other films in between there.
Mm-hmm.
So if I worked on it straight through, it wouldn't have taken 8 years. But there were other things. I mean, I got married, I had a kid, so all that stuff was in there. But that took 8 years. And that's like the animation style. I like how it looks. I like the lighting and the feel of the world. I mean, it's got a nice pencil texture feel.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the animation is real animators, I'll say, with quotes, I'm doing figure quotes, don't really like digital cutout animation. They feel like it's a little bit of a cheat.
Okay.
Because I'm not drawing every frame. I'm drawing the characters, cutting out those drawings, and then moving the parts a little bit by little bit. And it has that feel to it. It feels like a cutout draw, it feels like it's done on a computer. And I kind of like, I don't know that I could have finished it if I'd done it any other. I did it that way because I could do it, because I knew how to do it, and it's fast enough that I, as one person, basically could animate 46 minutes of a film without taking 30 years. And I wish that it wasn't that, but there's nothing I can do about it.
What were your expectations of the film once you complete it, or as you're doing it and then you complete it? Like, what did you think was going to happen?
Well, that film was a little different just because it took so long to do. When I started, I got, let's say, 8 minutes finished really quickly, right at the start.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was still, I had tons of energy. And when I was working on that, I thought, oh my God, this looks amazing. It's going to be like, people are going to notice it for the Oscars. Obviously, that's what I thought.
Yeah, sure.
I was very young, but I just assumed, like,
I don't think that's a bad thing to think.
No, but I mean, that's ridiculous. And the more I worked on it, that film, the more I realized it's definitely not that.
Now, was that a hard thing your perception of it, when you, quote, realized it definitely was not that, was that a hard thing to accept?
I mean, after I did a pass on it, I spent probably 6 months trying to fix the worst stuff that I could, the worst animation. I tried to fix major story issues. And it was sort of a depressing time. I don't mind that part of the process. Like, I don't mind trying to make the film better. And I worked on it for almost 8 years. What's another few months to try and make it better? But that was an upsetting time because I knew it was not going to be, it wasn't going to get into like, it wasn't going to be like a Sundance film or go to Cannes, anything like that. And yeah, it's upsetting because he spent so long on something only to realize like this thing that I thought was going to be really good that I did, it's not. I'm not as I wanted. I wish that the writing is better. I wish that the animation was better. I wish that I had used a different technique. And he got into some big festivals. He kept went to Zagreb Animation Festival, which is one of the biggest animation festivals in the world. And I was there. I went and I met one of the co-directors of the festival. And I was like, why is my film here? Because it was there as a feature film, which is ridiculous because it's only 46 minutes long.
Right.
Feature films are normally like 60 minutes or more. And I said, why is this film here? Because it's against like films that won, went to Cannes and Sundance and won major awards in the world. What is this fucking weird little independent American animation doing in this prestigious European festival? And he was like, it's clearly a labor of love, and we really appreciated that. And so that helped. Like, that made me think, well, okay, the effort that I'm putting into the work is important. People are noticing that. And it's a backhanded compliment. Like, yeah, it's a labor of love, even though it's not that great. But at least so I thought, well, okay, the time that I'm putting into it, like that helps. And all the films I did in grad school, like I got a reputation for making a lot of work. Because that was my goal, was to make a lot of work.
Uh-huh.
And when people introduced me, they say, oh, this is Joel. He's a great filmmaker. He's so prolific. And so that's like my reputation, is that I work quickly, that I'm prolific. I make a lot of work.
Did they ever refer to you as the Joyce Carol Oates of animation?
I just listened to I forget his name. So, Her Story Zombie.
Oh, that's a good book. That's based on Dahmer.
I've only heard the short story. I haven't read the book.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so
no, people do not.
They don't. Damn it.
No.
Well, that's a cool thing to be prolific, but you don't like that, or like?
No, I like that, and I feel like that's the thing that I'm going for. Me is that I make a lot of work, and so I feel like, oh, I need to hurry, and that's the thing that I need to like slow down a little bit and make sure that the films are good, not just done. It's a problem because animation is so fucking slow, and I've had a little bit of money every once in a while to hire some help. I had a couple of animators who helped with Where It Floods. They did a little bit of animation, but mostly it's me and it's slow. So I want to get it done. I can't spend 10 years on every film. It's not possible. So I cut a lot of corners in story and animation style, and it's starting to like weigh on me because they're getting to festivals. They're successful, but they're like, a lot of them are storefront festivals, essentially. It's like Joe Bob and his International Animation Festival, which is like no one's heard of it. Like,
is that like an international airport at a very small town outside of Canada?
At the library, the basement of the library. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
so which is fine. I love getting into them, and sometimes going to those festivals is really rewarding because people are excited about it. But they're like, that's not what I want.
What do you want?
I want to there's people that I work with and that I'm friends with who are filmmakers and writers, and some of them are mutual friends of ours, or fucking good, and then like go to major film festivals and are on juries, and their films and their writing is phenomenal. I want them to see something that I've made and say, holy shit, Joel, that is amazing. Not, holy shit, Joel, you finished another film? Which is usually the response I get. Like, oh my God, what are you working on now? You got like 5 films done?
Well, wait a minute. So do you think it's possible to have a film where you feel proud of without people saying those things to you?
Saying, oh, like to get the praise? I'm not doing it for, I'm doing it because I have the I'm doing it for me because I'm compelled to, because I'm obsessive as fuck. But really that, like, I'm not doing it because I want it. I'm doing it because I want that. I want the respect of the people that I respect. I met some, I won't name drop because it won't mean anything to non-animators, but I met some like major animators when I went to Zagreb and when I went to
was it Don Bluth?
No, but
okay,
good for you.
Thank you.
And I want to meet them again and them to say, "Oh yeah, I saw your film. Holy shit, that's really good." Whereas I was embarrassed. I met this animator Michael Takada, and his work is amazing. We were staying in the same hotel, and I walked back to the hotel and I chatted with him for a while, and he's like, "Oh, what's your film?" And I was like, "I don't even want to tell you." I was embarrassed because it's like, and I like because it's not that great. There's a critic who lives in Europe that everybody knows who she is. I became friends with her in Brussels, and when I was leaving, she was like, "Joel, please send me your film. Like, I want to write about it." And that would be amazing to have her write about my film. And I sent her my film, and I was like, "I don't know, Nancy. I don't I don't really think that you're going to like it. And she wrote back and she's like, you're right. I didn't watch it all. The music is great, but the animation isn't very good. I'm sorry. And she wouldn't write about it. And I was like, I mean, I would have felt devastated, but I sort of knew that that was going to be the response. So I was prepared for that.
Well,
But,
wait
like,
a minute. I have to ask something. She didn't watch it all. She couldn't watch 46 minutes of it?
not her thing. She wasn't going to waste her time. Like, I knew that she wasn't going to like it. Like, I didn't even want to send it to her. I was happy to be, I was happy to chat with her and
Yeah.
but I want to have a film that I can send her and say, hey, Nancy, this is something that I think that you're going to like, and have her finish watching it.
Do you, as you're making these films, you share it with colleagues?
Yeah.
And what's the feedback that you're getting? Is it just, oh, look at prolific Joel, or like, did they finish the films? I mean, like, what kind of what's the situation there?
Sometimes they finish the films. One of the problems with Vimeo is that when you upload, you can see the statistics on who watches it, right? Like, you can't see their name. Like, you don't see, oh, Jim watched your film, but you see the geolocation. So you can guess. And you can see how many minutes they watched. And you can actually see the stats for what part of the film people watch. There's like, it tells you like where they who's watched the first 5 minutes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll send it to colleagues, and then I'll get a little ping me email because they're usually, because that's how it's set up. And I look and I see, oh yeah, they didn't watch it all. And that happens a lot. But I mean, people say that I'm technically proficient. Like, I'm good at the technical stuff. I'm good at 3D modeling and making things look in 3D, and I'm a good animator, I think. So people will comment on those things. But people don't be supportive. They wouldn't be positive. So rarely do people say, holy cow, this is total shit. You should work on it.
Now, what about constructive criticism?
Yeah, I'm in a writer's group. You were in a writer's group a while, and I think that's really good. We give good feedback there. I don't feel writing is different because I'm not as attached to it. I'm very aware that I'm learning how to be a better writer. Yeah. So like that, the critical feedback in that group is good. Although sometimes I leave and I want to cry and never be in that group again. You feel about that group. Did you feel like I feel like you were hesitant to come back, and I wasn't sure if it was because you were nervous about it, or
no, it wasn't that. It was I can't remember when I moved out of Chicago. Yeah, that's the big thing. But you and I shared the same sentiment. We both thought we were the worst writer in the group. Yeah, and I'm here to tell you, buddy, I was worse than you.
No, I don't know, Kevin.
It's hard. I remember some of your stuff. It's pretty good, and but it's cool that. I might be remembering this wrong. It was your idea to start the group. Is that right? Or am I making that up?
Yeah, I felt like when I finished grad school, I wanted to keep the critique thing going. I wanted to still have, and I really want to be a better writer. I want to be a better writer. And so I reached out to another friend of ours, Kevin, different Kevin, and said, well, what do you think do you think we could start a writer's group? And we emailed around and got, 6, 7 people at the time.
Yeah, and it was pretty it wasn't like, oh, only 2 people would show up. I mean, more often than not, most, if not all the people were there at each session.
I think there's 8 of us now. We meet maybe every 6 to 8 weeks is when we get our schedules to line up. And it's great. Like we're all friends now, of course, and mostly we were friends before, but it's really positive feedback, but also very critical. So that's great to have that kind of like group and people to bounce ideas off of. But with film, I was in a critique group with film and animation. We were all animators, and it's good. I think that the hard thing about getting feedback for animation while you're working on it is that it's so slow. Yeah, that it's like. Sometimes feedback isn't that useful while you're working on it because it's not, you can't change it. Like somebody says, oh, the story is totally messed up. You can't, you have to start over. So it's good to get feedback in the writing phase.
Yeah, makes sense.
The production phase so that you can, and that's why Pixar, they spend years working on writing and storyboards and making sure the film is going to work before they start animating it.
Real fast, what do you think in your opinion, okay, is the best Pixar film?
Cars. Well, I like
is it
the
Cars
first
3?
half of WALL-E.
The first half of WALL-E?
Yeah.
What about the second half?
That's okay.
All right.
It turns into like action movie, which is fine.
What about Cars 3?
I don't think I ever saw it.
I didn't either. I don't think I've seen any of the Cars movies.
We just watched my almost soon to be 6-year-old. His birthday's Friday. That's why I make the his age take
happy
longer
early
to
birthday.
say. Yeah.
So
we watched the first Cars movie with him because he wanted to watch it.
And you referred to, so you talk about your son and you talk about the conversations you and your wife have had with him about worrying and emotion and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you referred to animation in terms of using the word like obsession. You're obsessed with it or, work. So do you feel that, and we're talking to you, you're in your home office there with the cool posters, the really cool bookshelf you built, all that good stuff. Do you feel like it takes you away from your family too much or a lot, maybe not too much?
Yeah. A lot. Yeah, for sure. It's like, that's the thing that I'm obsessed about. For sure. I'm aware of that too.
And does that eat at you?
Well, sure it does. I think one of the things that you and I have in common, I think, is that we feel guilty about basically everything, right?
Yeah, I felt real guilty about that time I took in a breath just a moment ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Yeah.
No, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I think no matter how much time I spent working on my work, I probably feel guilty about it. But that's the thing that I like it. Don't get me wrong. I'm a crazy obsessed artist, but I wouldn't do it if I didn't like it. So part of it's like, sometimes it's fun.
Yeah.
This I do for fun. And I crave it. I need it. But it's also like this need for, I don't want to say recognition, but like for, I don't know, appraisal. I don't know. I need
affirmation.
Affirmation. That's it. I need that. And everybody's telling me I'm so prolific. So I feel like I need to be prolific because that's the thing that I'm best at, is being prolific. And also I just got a full-time teaching position starting last year. And as of this fall, it'll be tenure track, which means that I have to go up to get tenure.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm fired. So I have to make work. I need to do that. And I'm lucky enough that my wife, Katie, she's an artist. She's a potter. She does ceramics. Mm-hmm. So she gets that part of it. She gets the need to make work and be creative. And I think is way more forgiving of the amount of time that I spend away from my family than somebody else might be, because she doesn't understand it. But I'm in my office a lot working, and I feel guilty about it.
Do you talk with Katie about it?
Yeah, we've talked about it. I'm a little afraid to know exactly how she feels, because I'm afraid that she'll say, "Oh yeah, I can't stand it that you're in your office that much." So part of me is worried to really sit down and say, what's the situation here? Well, but I think, like I said, because she's an artist, I think that I don't get the impression that my marriage is at risk for how much I'm
good.
Obsessed with working. But I have no doubt that she would say, yeah, I wish that you didn't want to work as much as you do.
What happens, say, if on the weekends and you are going to spend some more time outside of your office? Does that affect your behavior if you're away from the work for a while?
I get antsy. My dad is like this too. He's like, we talk a lot about vacation. Like if we go out of town, I have a hard time. I'm always like, I should be working. I should be in my office. This is time away from finishing this thing that I have to finish.
Right.
Because on a deadline, or because it's like I'm obsessed or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So the weekends we have kind of a schedule where I still can come out to the office because of like her family likes to come and visit Cooper, and he goes to grandparents on Sundays for lunch. So I've got time on the weekends that I still can come out and get stuff done. But for sure, I'm like,
well, when you say you get antsy, what do you do?
if it's really bad, I'll realize that I'm like pacing around the house, like looking out the window, and it's not. I mean, I try not to. I try and just like sit and be in the moment. But if it's really bad, then like there's times when Katie has said, "You just go outside."
Go outside? Like it's too much?
Because my office is it's in the garage. Maybe cut that so not everybody.
I get it now. I thought you meant just go outside and jump rope or something.
Yeah, no, it makes more sense. She I should just say, sometimes Katie just says, "Go to your office." There, you can edit that part. That makes more sense.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's kind of funny, the jump rope thing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much as I compliment my own joke. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so I want to close with something here. You've talked a little bit about your family. You've talked about your wife. You've talked about your son, who's going to turn 6 as of this recording, 2 days from this recording, which is really cool. So tell me, did you have trouble conceiving a child?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Katie's older. I'm sitting here trying to decide if hopefully she just won't listen to this. She just turned 50. So she's 8 years older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And we were trying to get pregnant. She was geriatric. It was geriatric pregnancy.
I hate that phrase, man.
That's amazing.
It's like 35 and above, I believe, right? Can they get another word? Yeah.
So she was, I don't remember when we started, but the first week, literally the first time that we tried, she got pregnant. That literally the first time that we, stopped using birth control, she got pregnant. And I don't think it lasted 3 months.
Oh.
And she was carried.
I'm sorry.
It was awful. I mean, the night that it happened, I was teaching. I was in a night class, and I knew that it was happening because she had sent me a text and was like, "This is happening." And you don't need to go to the hospital for the most part. Like, she was at home by herself in the bathtub, and it was terrible. And it was awful, and I felt terrible. And I was distracted the whole time, like teaching. She's like, "Don't come home. It's fine. You can't do anything. Just finish your class." And so that was terrible. That happened. I can't remember. It happened 1 or 2 more times. And then we tried birth control, or not birth control. Fertility. There we go. We tried fertility treatments. It's really expensive fertility treatment, and nothing would stick. She had no problem getting pregnant because she was healthy, and my little gentlemen were excited to reared to go.
Do they have bow ties on? If they're gentlemen.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
But yeah, it was terrible. It was really stressful. We talked with a lot of our friends who were like, "Oh yeah, we had that happen multiple times," especially because mothers are getting older on average than they used to be. I mean, fewer people I think are having kids in their like teens and 20s, and so that's part of it. That was the biggest thing. And so we gave up. We actually just assumed that it wasn't going to work, and we put an offer on a house. And then the following week, she was pregnant again, and it stuck.
That's awesome, man. It is really good to hear that. And I know very little about this, but I do speak with a lot of friends, and it is sad how common it seems that miscarriages are.
Yeah. Yeah. I even talked to my mom after, and she said it happened to her, which, why would I know that? Why would I ask that? First of all, unless I had experience with it. But we just, basically everybody that we know had, well, not everybody. Some people lucked out, but most of the people that we know who were parents had that experience. And we hear all the time, "Oh yeah, we tried it, we gave up," and then they got pregnant and it happened and it stayed.
Is there now again? This is pure speculation on my part. Do people say there's something to be said for when you stop, for lack of a better term, stressing about that? That actually does some good for the actual conception of the child.
I mean, I think that's what the general consensus is a lot of it is the stress, and then whatever that does to the body, and then you just stop doing that.
Well, I mean, I'm really happy for both of you. I know you both really wanted a child, and now you got a little 6-year-old who hasn't seen Cars 3 yet. But
I think he has.
Oh, okay. But probably knows who Don Bluth is, I hope.
Yes. Yeah.
My last question for you, Joel, before we wrap up. Have you pooped today?
I did a little bit.
Okay.
Hoping it happens a little bit more. I had some exciting poops the other day.
Okay, I have to ask, what's an exciting poop? No, you don't have to answer that.
That this is not a visual or an olfactory medium.
Oh, well, it's an olfactory if you're in the room with Brent.
It sounded like a horse peeing for, I don't know, a couple minutes.
Okay. Oh, boy. Okay.
So you leave that in.
We're leaving that in, buddy. And we're going to end on that, but before we go...
I'll share that
before we go, is there anything else that you wanted to share that maybe you weren't able to share during our conversation, that maybe we missed? Anything at all?
I mean, did I say anything that made any sense?
Just the horse peeing thing, really.
Okay, good.
The rest of it was all gobbledygook to me. No, I'm just kidding. No, of course you did. Of course you did. I mean, you as an artist talked a lot about, and we didn't use the words, I don't think, that I recall. You talked a lot about self-doubt, but you talked a lot about something that is also extremely important in art, which is persistence. And look, I'm no animation critic. My name's not Nancy, but I think you do good work. And now, I haven't seen a lot of it, right? But I have seen some. And I think you do good work. And I commend that you continue to work hard at what you love. And that is not, some days I'm sure that is not easy, but I give you a huge thumbs up to that, because I just think it's really fucking cool that you do that and that you teach it. And I think yeah. So there.
One thing that, if you're going to be an artist, like you kind of have to be, it's cliche, right? Like you have to be sort of obsessed. Like you have to love it. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to work hard enough to get to the place where you're going to be successful. You have to love it.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay with it?
Yeah, that's why I decided to have obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah.
Was for my art. That's not true. I didn't decide it. All right. Well, Joel, thank you very much. Sorry, I just thought about the horse pee again. Thank you very much for coming on, man, and really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Yeah, man, I had a good time. And thanks for sharing some difficult things to share. And, I'll end the episode the same way I usually do, which is to say that, there is always room for kindness and grace, even with yourself. I forget it every single day, but I try to remember it, that there is always room for kindness and grace. And we will see you next time on Sad Times.
You've been listening to A Fourth Hand Joint.